Hello and welcome to Jump Advisory. Sorry for the sniggers and giggles in the background. Christmas jokes have been coming around thick and fast between Mr. Jacobs and Mr. Sharp on who's got the biggest Christmas nose, but we'll let that go for them. But welcome to webinar 3 in the business development series. This webinar is all about taking on the big boys at their own game and how we beat them. So as people start to come onto the webinar, as always, we like to know that you can hear us, not particularly where you can see us, because some of us don't want to be seen, do we, Mr. Jacobs? So if you can put a note saying we can hear us, that'd be much appreciated. And Annette, thank you very much. It's good to see you're on. So taking on the big boys at their own game and beating them. This isn't just about how we look at the big boys and what we do. This is all about how we sort of move ourselves forward. So I always sort of think about, when was the last time we tried something new? When we start about sort of changing the way we do recruitment, it's about changing things that we do and doing something new. And trying something new is sometimes undoubtedly daunting. It is very daunting. It's unfamiliar. It makes us nervous. It's hard to describe. It takes us out of our comfort zone, and it puts us almost in a vulnerable position. Hence, lots of people don't want to do anything new and therefore never actually move their business forward. So it leaves us with that sort of question: what should I be doing? How can I do that? And if I do that, would I look stupid? So what this webinar is all about is, when we start to think about taking market share, and the opportunities now to take market share, is how we do it. So what we're going to do is try and provide you with a range of techniques and strategies that will enable you to sort of go toe to toe with your competitors, okay, and look at how we can sort of maybe take market share from the big players and move forward. So through looking at your model, looking at your recruitment services, your pricing, your support services, etc., we've got to start to think about where this all starts and how we start to move from being good to great, to coin a phrase, and how we move to a certain point to take those big boys on. So it is all about stepping outside your comfort zone. So I think the first place that we need to sort of address comfort zone is mindset. Paul, before we came on, we were talking quite a lot about mindset, certainly about your mindset. So give us your view when we start to talk about changing mindset for people to start to take on other recruiters in the marketplace, and especially those bigger players.
Okay, Howard, welcome everybody. I'm assuming you mean the good-looking Paul. That's why I answered first. So I thought I'll kick this conversation.
I think about the short one.
So mindset. I mean, we were talking about it before the broadcast, and I think it's just a very important start point for this conversation. We talked about it briefly last week. That, you know, the bottom line is that we are all in our industry. Most of us are very hardwired, as I used the expression last week, to sell contingent recruitment. You know, we're used to it. We're used to being one of several recruitment businesses that a client uses, and our people are pretty comfortable with that particular model. What we're now asking them to do is to I don't know, upskill, I guess would be the right phrase, to get out there and start talking to customers about retained exclusive business opportunities, all of which makes absolute sense, and we're going to go into a lot of detail about that today. But the question is, are our people in the right mindset in order to be able to do it? And I think the answer to that is, by and large, no. The truth is that we're going to have to spend a great deal of time with our people, coaching them, developing them, role-playing with them, to get them to a place where they understand how to start to pitch this type of business model. Because at the end of the day, if they've not been doing it, and they haven't been doing it, particularly for some period of time. So for example, I've done some role plays with other clients over the last several weeks, actually, around this entire business model. And people that have had quite a lot of recruitment experience, over 10 years, that have always sold contingent, are still, in a sense, kind of just trying to get their heads around the benefits and the features of this type of service in order to convince clients to come round and consider using it. And I think that if that's the case with the very experienced people around us, it's going to be perhaps even more difficult for the newer people to grasp the potential that's being presented to them. So I think where it begins, as you rightly say, Howard, is training and coaching and supporting our people so they feel comfortable. And I'll just pass on to Paul in a second, but there is a discussion. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's something like you have to do something 8 or 9 times before it becomes habit. So doing 1 or 2 role plays, 1 or 2 training sessions with your people isn't going to be sufficient. You're going to need to be doing it regularly over a concerted period of time to get people to a point of confidence, to enable them to start engaging with clients, to have the discussions around retained and exclusive opportunities, to deal with the potential objections, to be able to put across the features and the benefits, and so on. And that is going to take a period of time. It's not going to happen through 1 or 2 coaching sessions.
So I think mindset is very important. And I think what I've been talking to lots of clients about this just recently, about how fixated we are in the past. And we tend to look at the past quite a lot. And what our mind tends to do is it tries to create our own version of the past. And usually what that is quite a depressing version, because we tend to sort of focus on the negative. And what happens is once we start to focus on the past, then we start to think about the future, and we start to think about how we can change things for the future. And the future is quite a sort of an anxious place. Can I do that? Will that happen? What will happen if I do that? And so people get very worried about the future. So between the past and the future, one being sort of almost leading to a little bit of a depressed state and one leading to a very anxious state, in the middle of it is the now. And I think when we get the mindset of the now, what we've got to start to think about is how we take things on now and deliver things now, because now is the only bit that we can actually control and change. What's gone in the past, we can't change at all. And what's going in the future is just a dream. And if we can sort of make that dream to come to reality, you've got to do what's in the now. So when we start to talk about changing mindsets of recruiters from being contingent to retained, we've got to lead them down that path to make them understand that by acting now and how we act now will start to lead to things happen. So it's about taking away that anxiety. It's about taking away the conscious upset that people have about doing something different and moving forward. And to me, that's always about talking about how we take their clients along that journey and move those clients along that journey. That's what the area that we sort of start to discuss with Mr. Sharp here. So talk about that client journey, Paul.
I think you're absolutely right. And you know, when I look back, my past was only you know, bad and miserable. You know, since I met Paul Jacobs, it's got a lot. So, but it is about the here and now. And I think, you know, the question that I ask is everybody and every client that I work with, you know, if you look at your client base, when was the last time you physically met? And if you can't physically meet, you know, had a virtual meeting with your client? And when was the last time that you talked about everything other than a vacancy? Because this is about trying to create, we've talked about this a lot, about getting to this trusted advisor level relationship. You can only do that if you've moved beyond contact and acceptance. The way to do that is to give the clients something that they value or appreciate. And this, you know, we talked about this last week a little bit, so I won't dwell on it too much, but you've got to get to that point. You know, Paul's point about selling exclusivity and retained business is really important. But for me, you can't do that, or it's harder to do that unless you've got that trusted, you know, advisor type relationship. To do that, you've got to give your clients something that they value, either as a one-off or on a regular basis. If you haven't met your your top 10, 20 clients in the last 6 months, then you need to probably do that now. And now is as good a time as any, you know, before Christmas. But make sure the conversation is about things that is adding value to them. It's helping them solve a problem. You're going to give them information or data, which is going to help them look, you know, good internally, or it's going to help them solve a problem or a goal. And for me, you've got to get in front of your clients to do that. But it's not having a conversation about taking an order.
Can I just pick up on that point a second, Paul? I think, you know, we've got, as everybody's heard today, great news has come out. You know, the Pfizer vaccine is going to be rolled out imminently now. It's going to next week or two. I think that's going to be closely followed by the others, AstraZeneca, Oxford, for example. And it's now very strongly rumoured that most people in this country will have received the vaccinations by the time we get to the spring, which is what we were hoping for and what we're expecting. That's going to fuel a great deal of optimism in the economy. You'll see that in the stock share prices. and you'll see it in the sentiments of your clients. Now is a great time, particularly as we roll up to the Christmas period. To your point, Paul, to be engaging clients in conversations about next year, but also I think to be passing on relevant data and information around the marketplace. I mean, it's become apparent when I've had conversations with consultants recently that when they speak to clients, there's a view from the clients that there's going to be plenty of candidates out there looking for jobs, to the extent that maybe they could do it themselves. Well, I think that's not the case. I think that the candidates, our clients, are going to want to engage, are very likely to still be in jobs. In other words, it will require us to go and do some really good quality search and selection. And I think what we have to do is, to your point, Paul, get in front of clients and make them understand exactly what the market will look like in the new year, and particularly as the year unfolds and develops. Finding great candidates is not going to be easy. It's never been easy. And despite the volume of people that will unfortunately be looking for work, the kind of candidates many of our clients will want will still be in jobs. So the fact is, there's a great opportunity between now and really end of January to get in front of clients and talk about the year ahead for lots of reasons. And to your point, I think you're absolutely right, not to talk about what jobs they may have to offer at this stage, but really to talk about what the future holds in the planning, and looking at, as well, I think, to provide a whole range of different support and services.
I think on that we've got...
Alan's asked a really good question. Howard, is that where you're going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight into that, Paul. And I think the answer to Alan's question is all about perception. And we'll sort of add on to Paul's comment there about perception. So if the perception of you as a recruitment agency that you are an order taker, then that's all you'll get from your clients, is you're an order taker. So we've got to change the perception of how the clients feel about us and about how we add value into the client. So if you think you haven't got time to train your staff, and if your client is saying they haven't got time to listen to you, it's because they don't see the value. They don't see the value of what you're trying to change your business to. So from contingency to retained, or selling bigger services to take on other types of recruitment agencies, then the client doesn't see that value as well. So their perception of you is very, very different. So if you can create time, and that's what we need to do for our clients, is create time. So we can change the perception of what we're trying to do for that client by adding value, by changing the services that we provide to them that will give them a better end product, and a product that's more cost effective, i.e. driving down the overall cost of recruitment, not our fee, but the overall cost of recruitment, then all of a sudden we're in a very different way. So if you're an agency and you're saying you haven't got time to train your staff to do that, then fine, you'll sit in that contingency market forever, where you're getting paid, or you're paid nothing until you make a placement, and you'll never grow your business. If you want to change that mindset of your clients, your consultants, to become a retained recruiter and increase their fees and their value, then you've got to take time out to do that. To do that, then you've got to think about what you're offering your clients with regards to the product, and is that product a perceived value? So your perception of time is very different to their perception of time. So if you perceive your time internally that you haven't got that time, then you need to start to look at it. If you look at it from a business point of view, if they haven't got that time, then they're not seeing your product as a value added to them, and therefore they won't spend that time with you.
Howard, I think this comes
or Howard, that they are thinking that you want to spend time with them to take an order.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Yes.
To be an order taker.
Yeah.
To answer Alan's question specifically, I would be trying to find a way. So they don't want to see you. So either what you're offering isn't important, or they don't value it, or they perceive you to be something different to what you want to be perceived. In which case, what I would be doing, Alan, is starting to just drip feed information to that stakeholder to try and influence their thinking. So, if an example, it depends on the stakeholder, whether it be, production manager, a CTO, a HRD, HR, it depends who your stakeholders are. But find some information and data, and you will have access to it. So find something and just send it. This is some of the data that I was going to share with you. I thought it might be of interest. If it is, then I'll send you some more next week. If it isn't, then you've got the wrong data and the wrong information. If you find the right sweet spot, nobody is going to turn away information that's informative and helps them do the job better.
And I think, Paul, that was exactly what I was about to say. This becomes a marketing strategy. It's about sending relevant information. And I think the information needs to be customized to that specific individual or company. And to your point, if you're looking at purchasers of recruitment services, what type of purchaser are you trying to speak to? Is it a financial, economic purchase? Somebody's interested in purse strings, in spending money. Is it a technical purchaser, somebody in HR or procurement or an end user? So who are you trying to target, and what can you say to that person relative to their role in the business that piques their interest? And I think that comes down to, as you rightly say, relevant, and it has to be, can't be generic, it has to be relevant data. And then, as you say, to pick up the phone, to speak to them about it. I think meeting people in the current sense means virtual meetings, quite likely. If you can see them face to face, great news. But look, no one's saying, Alan, this is easy to get in front of people. And you're right, I think at the moment, because not many organizations are recruiting, certainly not to the degree we expect next year, then they don't see it as necessarily relevant to them. But I think if we can talk to them about planning for next year, particularly as we get beyond the spring period, then the information you drip feed, as Paul rightly says, becomes quite relevant. So it's certainly not an easy thing, but if you're looking at a ratio perspective and you sent out 50 and that generated 5 meetings, be worth every single one of the other 45 you sent out.
And I think you've got to expect that some clients aren't constantly going to want to tell you what they're doing, because probably they don't know what they're doing. But some clients will, and it's finding that client. And I think what it's about is finding out what you can offer the client that is different, what you can offer to the client that will help them move forward in the new year. And I can't remember what the name of the actual theory is. There's a theory that states that if 40% of your business every year should come from new business, 60% from retained business. But what they're also saying is that 40% of the products that you are offering to client and the services of your client should be upgraded or changed. And that's what we're talking about here is, have we got our staged recruitment process constantly that we aren't upgrading and changing, where when we talk about going back to our title about taking on the big boys, they change their products, they change their processes because they see the market in a far bigger way, and therefore they ought to take advantage of that type of marketplace. If you went back 25 years ago and started to talk about RPO, then no one would have a clue what RPO was. No one have a clue about any of that type of internal recruitment because it just hasn't existed. But what did the big boys do when they started to see that trickle into the marketplace? They stepped into that. Now, what we're not saying is that you have to step into that marketplace, but there's things that you can do on a smaller scale that is different than just a transactional bums on seat recruitment that can move us forward. So let's move that forward and think, what clients have done in the past is they've generally hired on skills, but fire on behaviors. So it's about, my view is it's about spotting the opportunities. So let's talk about what opportunities that we should be spotting within a client when we're meeting with that client. So then we can then start to then talk about the services that we could be offering that are different from just our transactional bum on seat recruitment that we're offering at the moment. Paul, sharp.
I was just going to jump in there. Susie's asked a question, which I think is a good question. So I don't know if we want to just answer that one first. So I'll just give my view, and maybe PJ's got a view as well.
Yep.
For me, Susie, what I have done is put accelerators in there for new business. So, if you make a placement in a new client, then you get an accelerator, and the new client be anything that you haven't billed for, that financial year or in the last 6 months. So I think Howard's point is absolutely a really good one. I think, your client retention rate for me, depending on what your product and service offering is and what market you're in, it should be north of 60%. So, you are going to lose potentially 30-40% of your client base. So it's how you mitigate that risk and how you put some incentive in place to reward your consultants for bringing new clients on board. Otherwise, your client base is going to get smaller and smaller. So that's very simple, but that's what I've done. Paul, have you done anything different?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money with this one. I think it is about growth. I've devised bonus plans in the past relative to growth. In other words, to your point, I mean, it would need a lot more explanation, Susie, and I think we're all more than happy to talk to you after the webinar, but certainly looking at things as Paul's suggested around client-based growth, for example. I would also, if we are really talking here about being serious about gaining greater retained or exclusive opportunities, you perhaps consider paying more bonus for placements that are made on vacancies that have been taken on an exclusive basis. We know, everybody that's listening to this knows that bonus plans dictate behavior. It always does, always has done. If you are, as a business, looking at your strategies for next year around things like growth, obtaining more retained business, then you're absolutely right, Suze. You need to revisit the remuneration plan. How are you going to influence your people to move in the direction you wish to take them? And that, I think you're right, correctly, comes down to things like the commission or the bonus plans. And I think, as Paul says, there's a number of areas there that you can sharpen up in order to get them to focus in those areas. If you don't do that, if you don't change the remuneration packages, then it becomes a greater struggle. I'm afraid it's an awful thing to say, and we've said it many times, but it's never really changed. The truth is that a lot of people in our industry still ask, if they don't say it out loud, they'll be thinking it, what's in it for me? And I think we could go on and on about what's in it for them, but something that will definitely sharpen their focus will be a change in the remuneration package aligned to your new strategies.
So let's get more into the meat of the conversation with regards to, what sort of opportunities are we looking to spot, and then what sort of solutions can we provide to the clients that fulfill that opportunity need, so we can take advantage of it and therefore take market share from the big boys.
Yeah. So I think for me, Howard, depending whether it's perm or contracts, the opportunities will be slightly different. Assuming that everybody's getting in front of the clients and having that conversation about what's going on in the market, what's happening to talent acquisition models going forward. I think the immediate opportunity we go back to is, after every recession, contingent labour is bounced back stronger than perm. So there's going to be a need around contingent first and foremost. We've got IR35 coming up next year. Organisations that can't adjust to IR35 unless they've got full visibility of the non-perm workforce. So, how are organisations adapting to that change, and how are they making sure they've got visibility of the temporary workforce going forward? On the perm, these are just ideas that I'm throwing out there, by the way. On the perm side, I think, just like, a lot of agencies, a lot of organisations have reduced the headcount, and in a lot of cases, the talent acquisition team has been shrunk to, next to nothing, in some cases nothing. So, when the economy starts to come back next year, then that's going to pose a real dilemma for organisations if they haven't got anybody in the talent acquisition teams.
Yeah.
Can you parachute somebody on site 2 days a week? Can you sell, a bit of a retain model? This is all about trying to get more ingrained in your client to create more stickiness. And by doing that, you'll spot more opportunities. But it's not necessary for me about taking an order. The order is a byproduct of the relationship and the opportunity that you'll spot in there. So it's about, things like what can you do to spot the problem or solve the problem and help the client meet the goal? Is it about diversity? Is it about dealing with volume of applications? Is it about, you've spotted an issue with the EVP, as in they're poorly perceived in the market? What candidate data can you share with them to back that up and support it? Do they need some help with the social footprint? Is it about trying to, I use this word a lot, this service creep? If you're already in there and you're supplying sort of contingent labour or temps, can you start to expand the service? Can you put some technology in there? Is there a payroll opportunity? What can you spot that you can start to just expand your service or get you more ingrained in the client to get more sticky with your client? The more you do that, the harder it's going to be for them to get you out. I can tell you now, the conversations won't be about price and about margin. They'll be about solving problems and adding value.
So let's talk about the trusted advisor triangle, as we often do, which is what you're making reference to, Paul, because basically at the base end of that triangle, where we're talking about contingent recruitment, as the Americans would call us, we become a product vendor. So we're one of many agencies, and clients find it very difficult to differentiate you from one of your competitors simply because you're exactly the same in their eyes. You've never met them. They don't know you. The level of trust towards you is minimal, if not non-existent. So that's where we often sit. The only way you can move up that triangle to the value-added supplier positioning is through client meetings. As you've said, there is no other way. There's no shortcut. You have to get in front of people, whether that's virtual or face-to-face. At that point, to pick up your conversation, that's where you start to understand where the gaps are, where you can provide these added value services. It might even be at the moment, rather sadly, that you're providing outplacement services. You're helping people they've laid off or are about to lay off find other jobs. You're providing counselling to those people. But you're certainly looking for the gaps, opportunities to provide services, which ultimately takes you up to being a solutions provider and then eventually to being a trusted advisor. Now, if you haven't, and you picked up, you made a very good point, Paul. The earlier point was, when was the last time you sat in front of a client to have a conversation about anything other than a role, anything other than a vacancy? And that's a brilliant question, because when you actually think about that, how often does that really happen? And what we're saying in this particular webinar is we want you to be doing far more meetings where you are not talking about what jobs that they've got presently they can offer you or assignments. What you want to be talking about is coming at this from an oblique position of asking, what else can we provide to you that we don't already provide? And I think that, to Paul's absolute brilliant point, it can only be achieved through client meetings. So back to the earlier point around bonus plans, for example, if what you are driving to, and you should be, is to get in front of as many customers as you can, then maybe that's an element of the bonus plan, that somehow you look at your bonus plan positioning in rewarding people for the volume of meetings that they achieve through current clients, lapsed clients, and new clients. And I think that that's an important point.
So let's move this into that sort of proper conversation about what we can actually provide. And that comment about looking at focusing on their problems, okay, is absolutely correct. But what we happen to do when we focus on a problem, and this is where the big players take advantage of the smaller players, and this is where we can start to bite back. So we focus on their problems, and then we try and shoehorn contingency recruitment techniques into that problem. What the bigger player looks at is they look at the overall problem and how they can actually solve that problem. So they spend an awful lot of time focusing on the actual product that will solve that problem, as well as the problem itself. So if we start to talk about anything regarding sort of EVP, candidate attraction, etc., what we're actually talking about is their recruitment services, their recruitment solution, what they have going into the marketplace. So we look at how we can tailor that recruitment solution to actually improve their overall recruitment product. And what that means is that we will do the three things that clients are looking to do at the moment. And one of the big ATS, they put out a big survey across the world, and clients were looking to improve their recruitment position, improve the candidate journey, and reduce their overall cost of recruitment. So if we can go to a client and start to look at their solution, look at their problems, and we start to think about, okay, your problem is that the market's changing so much, so you don't know whether you want temp or perm, etc. Then if you can provide a dual solution to them, then they'd be interested in that. But how do you price that solution? Do you price that on volume? Do you price it, as we do at the moment, per placement? What do we do to price that? Do we start to look at their overall solution regarding, right, next year you say you're going to take on X amount of perm heads. So do you think you could take that on as a project and therefore usurp your competition out of there by taking that on as a project? That's not saying as an RPO, but that's just a project for that type of solution. Paul, what you were talking about was putting technology in and say, let's put in a timesheeting system, a payroll system, etc., that reduces the overall cost to the client, reduces their stress levels. But what you're doing is then you're channeling it through your own individual company, which means that it's not a bigger step to say, right, why don't I take all of your business through this channel and drive this through this channel? So what we start to think about is educating our own staff to have a belief system that says, once you find what the client's problem is, can we think outside of the box and provide that actual solution to them? So your service creep then becomes really important. The more you creep into that client, the more problems that you will find. The more problems that you find, the more innovative you can be regarding the solutions that you can provide to them. So we've got to start to think about all those type of things, because clients are going to move into that marketplace irrespective of whether they have to or whether they want to. And if let's think about our marketplace, I remember talking to clients before lockdown and banging my head violently against a brick wall, talking about video interviewing is the way forward. And I would probably say 80% of my clients looked at me as if I was talking gobbledygook and didn't understand it. Now everybody wants to do video interviewing. So we've changed, but what that has changed for the client, what has the client changed? What has lockdown suddenly enforced on the client? And the big thing that it's enforced is that change from recruiting on skills to be hiring on behaviors. And so we can look at how we can change our recruitment process to add those type of things. So let's talk about solutions that we can offer to our clients that will then help us challenge the big boys and take small chunks from the big boys that then get bigger and bigger and bigger until we monopolize certain clients or certain sections of a client.
So Howard, I think one of the things that, what we're really saying here, and let's be very clear, is that we want to ring fence clients. We want to ring fence them to the extent that we take care of all, if not most, of their potential requirements, not just, as Paul has been saying, not just in terms of finding people for them, but providing a much broader service, which, as we already said, you can only really understand through constant meetings and building trust with them. And I think one of the things we talked about prior to coming on to the webinar, and we have said this an awful lot, is that if you're going to provide an overall solution to the clients that you work with, and indeed new clients, you've got to consider being able to provide a broad service across both permanent and contract/temp. And still, there are an awful lot of organizations in our industry that are predominantly, if not completely, perm only businesses. We talked about this earlier, and Paul raised his eyebrows and said, "Are you serious? People still aren't in a position to provide short-term labor?" And I said, absolutely. I think there's an awful lot of organizations that are only geared up to doing that. And one of the problems that you have if you only provide perm staff is that you're always going to leave that supposed back door open to allow your competitors to come in. It will prevent you from ring fencing that client. So one of the things you've got to be thinking about, we've talked about this endlessly over the last 7 months, is you've got to understand that the interim market is coming back strong. Look at the REC statistics that have been recently published. We've been saying this for a very long time. It's the market that's going to come back quicker than the perm market. If you're not in that space, you've got to be in that space if you truly intend to provide a ring fence service to clients. And when we're talking ring fence service to clients, we're not talking about necessarily the big companies, the big corporations. We are talking about the local businesses. If they only have 3 vacancies a year, why shouldn't they all come to you? But in order to achieve that, you've also got to be able to deal with every other area of their recruitment or / employment needs. And that may be providing HR experience. Perhaps you're looking at bringing in an HR expert who can provide that experience or legal knowledge. But it most certainly be everything, as well as providing good people when they need them. And I think that's very much the step forward, not just the technology, but the actual added value services that you've got to be looking to provide. And I think that's the step change that our people have to understand as well when we're training and developing them.
I think as a mindset shift as well, Paul, I think, if I go back about 14 months ago, 16 months, I think I've shared this story once before, but, I was asked to pitch for some business for a well-known online retailer, and they wanted a solution around workforce planning. So, what did I know about workforce planning? Probably not much more than anybody else. But, it's about working out what the issue is for the client and then bringing in the right skills. And it didn't take me long to find who was, the #1 sort of workforce planning expert in the UK. And then before you know it, you've got a solution ready to go. And then through that dialogue, you then work out that the client actually needs something else They don't need a workforce planning expert. They need somebody to go in and map the contingent labor out. So there's always a solution,
Yep.
providing you're looking for the problem. And the second thing I just add is, again, last week I talked to somebody, it's an engineering company, IT company, and they'll talk to their client about a functional-led mini RPO solution. So this isn't a big, a Deco manpower haze solution. This is can I come in and do these, 40 to 60 hires each year for you and manage the process for you. But as an agency, they were thinking about the placement, they were thinking about the candidate in a very traditional transactional recruitment model. They weren't thinking about putting themselves in the shoes of the client and thinking about how do they manage the internal mobility process? How do they manage internal referrals? How do they drive agency usage down? How do they build, their own talent pool for their own client? Now, as an agency, you might think, well, why would you do that? Well, one, I'd always say, well, if you don't, somebody else probably will, and you'd rather be in control of it than not. And secondly, if you're in there are different ways to charge and make money out of this. But the value of these solutions is, typically 2 or 3 times more in terms of the valuation of your business than your traditional staffing part of your organization. So there's a lot to be had here. You don't have to be, Goliath to do these sort of solutions, but you absolutely do have to be David.
Well, speaking as a small person, I would add that I think that when you are looking, when you're talking to clients, one of the great things about being a small business is that you have the agility to provide solutions. And I often say this to my clients that who I feel underestimate as owners their power, if you like. I think that if an owner rocks up in front of a client and talks about their business with the passion that they do, and they have the ability to make decisions on the spot, they have an advantage over their bigger competitors, a massive advantage. And if I was a purchaser of recruitment services and sitting in front of me was the owner of a business, maybe a local business, with all that passion and all of that commitment that goes with owning your own company, and that person is saying to me, I will deliver this, I will deliver that, with that level of commitment, I'm going to buy them every day of the week, no question. And I think that what we have when we talk about SMEs is that absolute ability, like the proverbial yacht, to change direction very quickly. How many times have we all sat in front of clients when we've been asked, can we provide an X, Y, and Z, or can we do this, that, or the other for them? How many times have we said yes, that knee-jerk reaction? Yes, of course I can do that. Absolutely, of course. Have you done it before? Yes, of course I have. And yeah, okay, fine, go off and do it for me. And you walk out the door, you get in your car, and you sit there with your head in your hands, thinking, oh my God, what have I agreed to do? I have no idea what to do. But how many times, and I would say 99.999 recurring, have you managed to come up with the solutions and delighted your clients? So the answer to this is get in front of people, find out what they want, say yes, and then figure it out. You're surrounded by people that know the answers, particularly us guys. We can help you if you need that help. And there's no question that when it comes to employment recruitment matters, we are in a great place. Don't underestimate your level of expertise, your level of knowledge, and certainly don't underestimate your network of experts that can assist you and support you when you need to do something for a client that perhaps you've not done before.
That goes back to what we said right at the beginning about stepping out your comfort zone and really stepping up. And as we focus on problems, what we actually need to then is provide the solution. As we said, it's not just polishing your contingency service and making it shine and fitting it in. I've said that very politely from what we said earlier on this morning. You can't polish but there you go.
Move on, Howard. Move on.
But what it's saying is that we've got to start to really think about what the solutions we can give, and that agility to create a solution is really important, and tailor that to the client. Once we've tailored that solution to the client and we have that test bed that it works, then we can start to push that on to everybody else, to other clients. So it's having that mindset, but that then goes back into the mindset of your consultants that are doing that. And that means that training and development so they can sell that solution is really important. They have to buy into that process to be able to do that. And I always say that when we talk about, becoming an influencer in the marketplace, if you can't pitch your client within 2 minutes of your solution, and the client after 2 minutes is going, actually tell me more about that, that's really different to what I'm getting at the moment, I could really do with more of that, then maybe your pitch isn't quite as strong enough as it is. And of all of these things, if we start to build our new products, we've got to build the collateral around us to be able to deliver those products. Because if you go on with this big shiny sell, and then they look at your website and it's just contingency, and every advert you're putting out is a contingent advert, and it's got nothing to do with what you've sold, then the client loses trust and loses that value proposition that you've just provided to them. So we've got to work really hard on doing all of those type of things to make sure that we're doing everything humanly possible, that when we move into that, then we are actually driving the client. I think I've upset Paul. Paul Jacobs has just run off.
I think he's gone to collect his children's clothes from actually delivered.
Yeah, don't mention his children's clothes. But what we've got to sort of think about, though, is as we drive forward, it is the education of our own staff to educate our clients and take that on. What we've got to understand is that we can adapt far quicker than anybody else, and it's stepping out of our comfort zone to be able to adapt.
Sorry, guys, Amazon were at the door.
Is that mother care again, Paul?
Yes, mother care again. This is the thing. Working from home, I've discovered just how much money I didn't know I was spending on Amazon. The door literally constantly rings. It's
brilliant.
Anyway.
I think, I just probably add another point on top of that, Howard, and that all this does feel alien. I can't get away from that. And when I've done, trained people in the past and encouraged teams to get out there and have these different type of conversations in a different way, it's very much about practice. And, whether it's selling a retained piece of work, whether it's talking to your client about the market and future talent acquisition models, or the change in, the mix between temp and perm, all that takes a bit of practice and a bit of time. But that's where, I know, you guys, and I've been doing the same thing. That's where we can help, agencies and agency owners, is just getting that pitch absolutely right. But what I will say is, once you get it right, the feeling you have when you go and have that conversation with a client, knowing that you're a real proper consultative expert, it feels pretty good. And without a shadow of a doubt, it will elevate your relationship beyond an order taker to somebody who can actually solve problems.
And this is where the difference is that when you start to train people, you can't just train them once and hope that it comes in. You've got to keep doing that training and keep developing that training. What you've got to look at your product might need refining constantly until it gets to the optimum, and then it starts to move forward. So you're right in what you're saying, Paul. It's not just about training, it is about developing that training constantly, and practice and practice and practice. And people say, practice makes perfect. Well, I'm not a believer in that. I'm a believer in perfect practice makes perfect. So if we only train once, then that training then ebbs away after a period of time. So it's not perfect. And that's where shortcuts come in, and that our product is degraded. So perfect practice constantly makes perfect.
Okay,
that's
Howard, I'm raising my pen here because I just want to, I know we're running out of time, and I want to make hopefully an important point. If we are going to position our businesses as offering something that's different from contingent, then you've got to look at your website. You've got to look at your marketing materials. Your business has to look like it acts. So if everything on your website screams contingent, people will continue to think that's all you do. I think certainly if you're beginning now to ring fence customers, you should be able to get them to agree on many instances to dual logo advertising, for example. And it's also important, I think, to get testimonials from organizations about the model that you've used. You've got to change perception of your business, not just in terms of the way we, as you correctly said, we coach and we train, we provide perfect training for our people, but also the way in which we're perceived in the market. Now, that isn't going to happen overnight, but it certainly needs to be addressed as part and parcel of this particular strategy. If you're going to move away gradually from this contingent positioning, then you've also got to look at the marketing, look at your public face.
So I think as we bring this to a close, I think the couple of things that we've got to sort of just reiterate is that saying yes is really important, but what you've got to find out is what you're saying yes to. And the biggest yes that you've got to say yes to is stepping outside of that comfort zone, finding that problem, and then genuinely looking for a solution to find that. If we start to look at that, then what we're doing is we're leading into next week's webinar. And next week's webinar, we're looking about people by people, passion sells. But do we know how to develop our people to actually do that? And to me, this is the big key and the big link to business development that is often the weakest link. The training and development of staff to actually deliver what you want has to be brilliant. So next week, we're going to talk about how we're going to develop training programs to take your business from being contingent to retain, to sell recruitment solutions. We're going to talk about this for an hour because we think it is such an important product. What we've got to think about is that how we develop that and how we develop our staff and how much we invest in our staff will show at the end with the products that your clients buy and you sell to your clients. So that next week that we're going to look at, as both Paul sort of intimated, if you want to have a discussion with us about currently developing your teams in this way, we are running these projects with lots of clients at the moment. We tailor them to each individual client to look at what we can put in, taking them from a contingency bums on seat recruiter to a more product-based solution provider, whether it be retained, exclusive, or a more complex product. We are providing that. So if you want to get in touch with us, please get in touch with us from that point of view. Remember, we're still offering our free 60-minute mentor sessions to those who've not had those sessions. So if you want to again talk to us about that, please sign up for that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 11:46. We said we'd do it in 45 minutes. We're always a little bit over time, but we like a little bit of overtime from there. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop those questions in. If not, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's been, again, an exhilarating 45 minutes. They always seem to go so quickly. It's good to see that Paul Jacobs was listening when he went to see the Amazon Man. I'm not repeating everything that we just said as he got out of the room, but there you go. It's always good to get things twice. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a happy Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Cheers, guys.
See you guys.